They sold my house on the courthouse steps for $6,200. I had paid the mortgage on that house for 30 years. Paid it off in full. The deed was clean. And they still took it. Over a $200 fine. Let me say that again so it lands. $200 for a wheelchair ramp I built for my wife. I need to tell you what happened. And I need you to stay with me, because it gets worse before it gets better. There is a stack of little cards in this story. Green cards from the post office. Signed. Or supposed to be signed. Remember them. They come back. If somebody did this to you, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments. I mean it. Because for a long time, I did not know either. I want you to understand what was on the line. This was not just a house. This was the last place my wife could see her own garden from the window. The last place we were happy. And a man in a golf shirt decided it should belong to him instead. Let me back up. Let me tell you who I am. My name is Otis Caldwell. I am 67 years old. I live in Missouri City, Texas, just southwest of Houston. I spent 31 years as a United States Postal Inspector. That is federal law enforcement. We investigate mail fraud, mail theft, things sent through the system to hurt people. For 3 decades, my whole job was paper. Who signed what? Who received what? Whether a piece of mail actually got where someone swore it got. I could read a certified mail receipt the way a doctor reads an X-ray. I am telling you that now because it matters later. Hold on to it. My wife was Yvonne. We bought the house on Quail Hollow Drive in 1994. 3 bedrooms, brick, a pecan tree out back. We raised 2 kids in it. I paid that note for 30 years and burned the paperwork in the grill the night I made the last payment. Yvonne grilled chicken on top of the ashes. We laughed about it. Then in 2021, Yvonne had a stroke. After that, she used a wheelchair. The 4 front steps that we never thought about for 27 years became a wall between her and the world. So I built her a ramp. Pressure-treated lumber, proper slope, sturdy rails. I built it with my own hands, over one weekend. She rolled down it the first time and cried. That ramp is where this whole thing starts. I want you to remember it too. I had retired by then. Quiet life. The Crown Victoria in the driveway. The one the post office practically issued to my generation. Coffee on the porch. Caring for my wife. That was my world before any of this. Then the letter came. It was a Tuesday. Hot. The kind of Houston afternoon where the air feels like a wet towel. I was checking the mailbox and there was an envelope from the HOA management company. A fine, $200, for an unapproved exterior structure. They meant the ramp. I went to the next board meeting. Folding chairs in a clubhouse that smelled like burnt coffee and carpet glue. And there he was, Grant Whitmore, the board president, 54 years old, pressed golf shirt with the community logo, a watch that cost more than my first car. He had this way of smiling at you while looking just past your shoulder, like you were already in his rearview mirror. I explained the ramp. I explained Yvonne. I explained the stroke. I told him I would happily submit whatever form they wanted after the fact. He folded his hands, and he said, "People who don't pay don't get to keep their homes. That's not cruelty, Mr. Caldwell. That's accounting." I did not raise my voice. That is not how I am built. 31 years taught me that the man who stays quiet is the one still standing at the end. But inside, something went cold and still. The kind of still I would learn to trust. And that was only the beginning. Because what they did next made that fine look like a courtesy. Here is the thing about a $200 fine. It does not stay $200. I refused to pay it on principle, and I requested a hearing. They denied the request. Then the late fees started. $25 a month. then administrative charges. Then they turned the file over to a law firm, and the attorney's fees began. Real money now. And I want to be honest with you about what was happening at home. Yvonne was getting sicker. I was driving to dialysis 3 times a week. I was sleeping in a hospital chair more nights than my own bed. So when the HOA letters kept coming, I set them in a drawer. I figured I would deal with $200 when I had a minute to breathe. I did not know yet that I was being timed. I did not know that drawer was a trap. By the time I looked up, that $200 fine had a lien attached to it. The balance on the lien said $5,800. I want you to understand what was on the line. Not just brick and a pecan tree. The only home my wife had left. The place she wanted to die in. And these people were stacking paper against it while I was holding her hand in a hospital. I started doing the one thing my old job had drilled into me. When something feels wrong, you document it. I did not know yet I was building a case. I just wrote everything down. Dates, names, every letter. Yvonne passed in the spring of 2023. I will not dress it up for you. The house went quiet in a way I did not know a house could be quiet. For a while, I did not open any mail at all. When I finally sat down with that drawer weeks later, I started actually reading the HOA paperwork like an inspector again. And one line stopped me cold. The file referenced notice of foreclosure sent by certified mail. Multiple notices, with dates, with certified tracking numbers. I had never seen a single one of them. Now I am a man who spent 31 years tracking certified mail. If those notices were real, I would have signed for them. There would be a green card with my signature. So I made one phone call to a number a friend gave me. And that call put me across a table from Renee Ammons. Renee was 38, a legal aid attorney who did fair housing work out of a cramped office in Houston. She drove a dented Honda and ate granola bars between hearings. She talked fast and listened slow. She looked at my file for 10 minutes. Then she set down her granola bar and said, "Mr. Caldwell, in Texas, an HOA cannot just take your house. They have to prove they followed every step. And the first step is proper notice." It was a real win, a door cracking open. But she warned me it was only a crack, because I was not ready for what she told me next. Renee pulled the county records right there on her laptop, and her face changed. "Mr. Caldwell," she said, "I'm sorry. There's a problem. Your house has already been sold." The HOA had foreclosed. There had been an auction on the courthouse steps. My home, paid off, worth around $310,000, had been sold for $6,200 to cover that lien. And the buyer was a company called Hollow Oak Holdings, LLC. I sat in Renee's office, and I could not make the numbers make sense. 30 years of payments, a clean deed, gone, for the price of a used car, while I was burying my wife. Then it got personal in a way the money never could. Word got around the neighborhood. Some folks I had waved to for 30 years started looking at the ground when I passed. A man 2 doors down asked his wife, loud enough for me to hear, why old Caldwell stopped paying his dues. Like I was a deadbeat. Like Yvonne never existed. Like the ramp was a crime. I want to be honest with you. There was a night I sat in the Crown Victoria in my own driveway and did not start the engine. I thought about calling Renee and saying, "Forget it. Take whatever they'll give me. I'm too old and too tired and too alone for this. Have you ever had someone try to take not just what you own, but your good name? Because that is what this was. Tell me I am not the only one." But I did not make that call to quit, because that same night I went inside and sat at the kitchen table, the one Yvonne used to set her tea on. And I laid out every piece of paper they had sent me. And I realized I had been so busy asking what I owed them that I never once asked what they owed me. The proof. In this country, before anybody takes your home, they have to prove they told you. By the book. On the record. With a signature. I had spent my whole career catching people who faked that proof, and I had a powerful feeling that is exactly what these people had done. It was not anger. Anger burns out. This was quieter, colder, the kind of clarity that comes when you finally stop pretending it might fix itself. I called Renee in the morning. I told her I wanted to see the green cards. Here is where my old job stopped being a memory and became a weapon. I requested the foreclosure file. Every certified mail receipt the HOA's law firm claimed proved I had been notified. The green return receipt cards, the little ones you sign. Renee got them through the court file. We spread them across her conference table, and I went through them the way I went through evidence for 31 years. 3 certified letters were claimed. 3 green cards came back marked delivered and signed. But 2 of those cards were signed O. Caldwell. I never sign O. Caldwell. Not once in my life. Not on a check, not on a federal document, not on a birthday card. I sign Otis Caldwell, full name, every time. 31 years of habit. That signature was not mine. And the 3rd card was stranger still. It listed a delivery date when I was 190 miles away, sitting in a hospital in another county next to my wife. I had the parking receipts. I had the visitor log. I could prove where I was to the minute. So I did what I used to do for a living. I took the certified tracking numbers and I pulled the actual postal records, the real ones. The system does not lie the way people do. 2 of the 3 numbers had never been scanned as delivered to my address at all. 1 had no delivery scan anywhere in the system. Let me give you something useful here, because somebody watching needs it. In most states, an HOA cannot foreclose on your home without strictly proper notice, usually by certified mail, with proof you actually received it. If that notice is defective, the whole foreclosure can be void, not reduced, void. Your name on a paid-off deed is not a suggestion. Nobody erases it on a forged signature. Those green cards I told you to remember, they came back. And they were lying. This was the foothold. But I want to be clear. It was a foothold, not a victory, because Grant Whitmore was about to find out we were looking. The moment Renee filed our motion to set aside the sale, the temperature changed. First came a phone call to me from a man who said he represented the new owner of the property, Hollow Oak Holdings. He was friendly, too friendly. He offered me $10,000 to release any claims and move on with dignity. $10,000. For a house worth $310,000. He said it slow, like he was doing me a favor. I told him I would think about it. Then I hung up and wrote down every word. 2 days later, somebody from the management company called Renee's office and suggested, real casual, that legal aid attorneys have a lot of cases, and maybe this old fine dispute wasn't worth her time. A nudge, a hint to back off. Renee laughed about it, but it told us something. They were nervous. And I want you to understand the position I was actually in. We had a court hearing set. On the other side was a man with money, a law firm on retainer, and a company set up specifically to swallow houses like mine. I had a dented Honda lawyer and a stack of green cards. That night I sat in the Crown Victoria again, in the dark, and I did not start the engine for a long time. Not because I wanted to quit, because I finally understood how big this was. Then their nervousness made them sloppy. And sloppy is where I have spent my whole life. Renee filed to open the records of Hollow Oak Holdings. Who owned it? Where the money went? And what came back stopped both of us cold. Grant Whitmore was a silent member of Hollow Oak Holdings. The president of the HOA, the man who voted to find me, the man who controlled the board that approved the foreclosure, was a hidden partner in the very company that bought my house at the auction. He found the home. His board foreclosed the home. His company bought the home for $6,200, a home worth $310,000, and mine was not the first. We pulled 5 years of foreclosure records for the subdivision. Hollow Oak Holdings had bought 4 other homes at HOA auctions. Every single owner was either elderly, recently widowed, deployed, or in the hospital. People who were not watching the mail. People exactly like me. One of them was a woman named Gloria Pratt, 71, widow, lost her home over a fence dispute and a fine of $310 while she was recovering from heart surgery. When Renee called her, she cried on the phone. She thought she was the only one. She thought it was her fault. She agreed to come to court and tell her story. The hearing was set for October the 3rd. That gave us about 5 weeks. 5 weeks to take 3 years of their careful planning apart on the record. And then, 8 days before the hearing, something happened that I still have trouble talking about. 8 days out, Whitmore made his last move. A letter went out to the whole subdivision, unsigned, but everyone knew the source. It said the association was defending itself against a disgruntled former resident with a history of non-payment and warned neighbors not to speak to outside attorneys or investigators. He was trying to poison the well before I ever walked into that courtroom. Salt my name in the only place I had ever been known. That was the darkest night. I sat at Yvonne's kitchen table with the green cards in front of me and her wind chimes going outside the window, and I asked her out loud what to do. I am not ashamed to tell you that. I did not get an answer, but I got steady. I was not going to walk away. I had spent 31 years standing between people and the ones who tried to cheat them through the mail. I was not going to fail to do it for my own wife's house. So we walked into that courtroom. October the 3rd, a small civil courtroom in Fort Bend County. The bench was cold under my hand. I wore the gray suit I had worn to Yvonne's funeral because it was the only suit I owned that meant something. Whitmore came in with 2 attorneys and that same watch. He sat down and glanced past me, the way he always did, like I was already gone. Renee stood up. Calm. Granola bar calm. She put up the foreclosure notices first. Then she put up the green cards. Then she put up the postal tracking records I had pulled, the real ones, blown up large enough for the whole room to read. She walked the judge through it slow. 2 cards signed O. Caldwell, a signature I had never once used in my life. A delivery date when I was provably in a hospital 190 miles away. Tracking numbers that the postal system itself showed were never delivered to my home. Then she called me, and the judge asked me how I knew. And I said, Your Honor, I spent 31 years as a United States Postal Inspector. Verifying delivery of mail was my job. These notices were never properly served, and these signatures are not mine. I watched Whitmore's face. The color drained out of it slow, from the top down. His hands came together on the table and stayed there, too still. Then Renee put up the ownership records for Hollow Oak Holdings, with his name on them. And then she called Gloria Pratt. That little woman walked to the stand and told the judge how she'd lost her home of 40 years, over $310, while her chest was still stitched together. The room went silent. Whitmore's attorney did not object. There was nothing to object to. It was just true. The judge set aside the foreclosure sale entirely. Void. The deed to my home was restored to my name, free and clear, the way it had been for 30 years. She referred the pattern of self-dealing foreclosures to the district attorney and to the Texas Attorney General's office. She used the word scheme. She ordered the HOA to pay my legal costs and Gloria's. And here is the part I will carry. As it ended, Whitmore looked at me, finally, straight on, not past my shoulder, at me. I did not smile. I did not say a word. I just looked back at him, steady, and let the quiet do the rest. He had told me, in a folding chair in a clubhouse, that this was just accounting. He was right. It was accounting. He just never checked his own books. The neighbors who had looked at the ground when I passed started knocking on my door with casseroles. 2 of them apologized. I let them. Life after is quieter, not triumphant, just mine again. The DA opened a criminal case on the foreclosure pattern. Whitmore is out as board president, and that is the least of his problems now. Hollow Oak Holdings is being unwound in court. Gloria Pratt is fighting to get her home back too, and Renee took her case for free. I sit in on every hearing. She calls me her partner. I still live on Quail Hollow Drive. The pecan tree is still there. The ramp is still there. I never tore it down. I leave it up on purpose. And here is where the real resolution lives. Not in that courtroom. On my porch. A few weeks after, I made a cup of coffee, and I carried it out front, and I sat down at the top of that ramp Yvonne used to roll down. The wind chimes were going. The garden she planted was coming back on its own. And for the first time in 3 years, the house was quiet in a good way. I keep those green cards in a drawer now. Not as a weapon anymore, as a reminder. Let me give you what I most want you to take from a man who did this the hard way. Know what your name is on. Know what you own outright and what still has a lien against it. And open your mail. Every piece. Even the boring envelope. Especially when life is hardest. Because that is exactly when they count on you not looking. Your home cannot be taken in silence. Not legally. They have to tell you, on the record, and they have to prove it. Make them prove it. Have you ever had to fight for something everybody told you to just let go? Tell me about it. I read every single one. My name is Otis Caldwell. I am 67 years old. I am still right here on Quail Hollow Drive, in the house I paid for, with the ramp I built. I did not walk away from what I built. Neither should you. If this story meant something to you, share it. There are people out there right now sitting on a drawer full of letters they are afraid to open, thinking they are alone. They are not.